Hi everybody, it's Josh with Talk About Trek, and yes, I'm back again to talk about another TNG novel. This time we have finished up number 35, Robert Greenberger's wonderful The Romulan Stratagem. So let's just kind of dive right into the normal here. From the cover, the return of Picard's nemesis means danger for the Federation. And as you can tell from the cover there, Picard's nemesis, of course, Sela. And looks like we're also getting something featuring possibly Romulan, and Captain Picard's going to be featured here. So, and then the planet we see here on the cover is the planet Elo. Cover art by Keith Birdsong, who's done so much great Trek cover art. So, again, I always got to remember to credit the cover artist because all these are just wonderfully done. So, let's go to the back here. On a mission to an unexplored planet near the Klingon-Romulan border, the USS Enterprise travels to the planet Elo to negotiate Federation membership. But upon arrival, Captain Jean-Luc Picard and his diplomatic team find themselves face to face with Commander Sela, an old Romulan enemy, who's there to convince the Elosians to join the Romulan Empire. When a series of fatal incidents cast suspicion on both delegations, Data must form an uneasy alliance with Sela to prove the innocence of the Starship Enterprise's crew, or lose a strategic stronghold to the Federation's greatest enemy. Wow. So, actually, that's not too bad of a back cover there. It doesn't give away too much of the story. Still, I wouldn't have read it, and I'm glad that I didn't. So you see the cover, and you would think that maybe you're getting an Ensign Rowe story. The Ensign Rowe is like the B story, so before we jump into the full-on rant about the book, just briefly, what you're getting here is like a classic kind of TNG diplomacy tale. You've got a lot of like meetings and banquets, and conferences, speeches, and talking policy, contrasting that with like the Romulan policy, that kind of thing. And it's all very, very good. Very well done. The people, the planet, the Elosians are interesting. They're a planet coming out of like a decades-long civil war, so there's a lot of backstory and a lot kind of going on there. And Sela is well done here too. Written not just as kind of like a generic enemy, but really you kind of get into her character as well and her motivations for what she's doing. So the B story is an Ensign Rowe B story, which is just kind of there maybe for like some comedic relief, but doesn't add much to the A story, which takes the lead and takes most of the story. So overall, just a great kind of diplomacy thing. Sela and Picard head to head, and just some very interesting differing ideas that they present to this planet to kind of win them to either of their sides. So I would recommend it to anyone who is looking for something a little less action oriented. There really is maybe 2 or 3 action scenes in this book, and they're more like rescue scenes. So it is a lot of diplomacy, a lot of talking, but that's what this kind of that's what these books really are at their best in a lot of ways. No starship action to speak of whatsoever, so if you're looking for that, you're not going to get that here, but you're going to get a lot of stratagem. They lay it on thick. So I would say Robert Greenberger does a good job. I think this is his first book. He collaborated a lot with people, but this is his first solo book. And it was an idea that he had been working on for a long time. So I think he fleshed it out really well and did a great job. And I was very happy to have spent the last 5 days diving into it. It was published in 1995, and it references, of course, a lot of the stuff, all the Sela episodes from TNG, and then also the Face of the Enemy episode, where Counselor Troy is turned into a Romulan for the episode for whatever reason there. This happens shortly after that, I believe. So, yeah, other than that, it's a good read and it's a lot of fun. So definitely dive into it if you're looking for something a little less action, a little more diplomacy. So, all right. Now, getting right into it, let's jump into the prologue. They introduce you to Premier Dathan, who's like the new leader of the unified government of Elo. And he is walking and talking with his good friend Governor Waln, who's like who he's been working with for some time. And they're talking about their recently unified government, kind of like the troubles they're having, and that they are now ready to introduce themselves to a spacefaring species, which is on its way to meet them. And he reveals there's actually two that are coming to meet. So that's how the book starts out, with that kind of little bit of a intro there. And then it jumps right into Ensign Rowe. So you think maybe you're getting this Ensign Rowe story. No, you're not getting that at all. She puts out a fire, and in the process of putting out that fire, kind of roughly shoves this teacher out of the way and gets reprimanded for that. So Commander Riker says you need to kind of get a little bit more social with the people here, and he orders her to become like a orientation officer and introduce a new family and kind of show them around the ship. In doing that, he meets the young James Kelly, who becomes infatuated with her, and this is your B story. But we'll come back to that later. That's not really the important thing. The important thing is they get to the planet, and they find that it is being orbited by a older B-type warbird, which they were not informed like anything like that would be happening. So, but basically they beam down to the planet, they meet up with Dathan, and they kind of set out this course of events, this series of things, and they have like a limited amount of time. There's this very special cultural holiday on Elo coming up in 5 days, so they have to get all these tours, these meetings, these different things done within this 5 days between these two groups, the Romulan group and the Federation group, so that the Elosians can decide which way they're going to go, which group they're going to ally themselves with. So right there at the beginning, they're kind of laying it out that this is what you're going to get. You have these two groups kind of vying for this planet's, allegiance. So it starts out with a lot of things like tours. Geordi and Counselor Troy meet up with one of the Elosians named Ilena, who becomes like their tour guide, takes them on a tour of just like one of their facilities. That's where Geordi meets up with one of their kind of engineering minds named Luth, and he kind of wants help with the problem, but Geordi can't help him because of the Prime Directive. He can't like directly tell him that this is how you can improve your things, and Geordi's kind of miffed at that, and the other guy is kind of too. But I mean, that's how that's kind of going. So Picard and Data at the same time, they visit the Parliament on the planet, where they're kind of surprised to see that the planet is not the unified government that they kind of claim themselves to be. They're still very divided, and they kind of fight amongst themselves. Not so much with weapons now, but more just like with words and just with their divided actions there. The two main groups there that they kind of keep talking on this, give you an example, like the populist group said that they were the best on the sea, and then some other guy was like, "Oh, best on the sea? I don't think so." They're still kind of like they're fighting against each other. So it's the Dar and the populist, and then there's like some other smaller groups in there or something. But even though they're unified right now, you can see that that is definitely a strained unity. So the next chapter, chapter 4, they get into probably one of the best ones in the book, which is this very lengthy banquet chapter where they kind of meet and introduce everybody. You meet the Romulan kind of sub-commander Plactus, and there's lots of these little kind of back and forths where the Romulans are trying to get, throw Starfleet officers off their balance, make Worf mad, make somebody upset, but everybody's on their game and kind of keeping things cool, and for the sake of the banquet, not getting out of hand. So an excellent chapter there. Just verbal jabs, speeches by everyone, just very well done stuff altogether. So, uh, oh, after that, after the speeches, the Romulans get up and they're like, "Oh, we want to present you with a gift." And then everyone on Starfleet side is like, "Oh my gosh, we didn't bring anything. What are we gonna do?" And Sela gives up and gives them some incense. And then the Elosians inform Sela, "Well, unfortunately, we really don't have a strong sense of smell, but thank you for your incense anyway." So maybe Sela thinks she messed up or something, but still, it was a nice gift anyway. And we learn something about them, that they don't have a good sense of smell, which actually does come up later. So, oh boy. Okay, so I'm gonna leave the B story for now. We'll just continue on with the A story to not get out of hand here. Uh, Geordi is taking on more technical tours, and Troy and him, they go to visit the main purification plant, like the water purification plant on the planet, which is this huge facility that's been kind of cobbled together and built over the years, and just kind of added on to and improved over the years. And Geordi's actually pretty impressed by what he sees there. Like, the technology is pretty well done, and he doesn't see like much he could do to improve it. He speaks with Luth there as well, and it kind of tells him the same thing. And about that time, there is the first real action sequence here of the book, which is a bomb attack on this purification plant. And a huge bomb goes off, blows off part of the thing, and now there's this, basically this hazardous waste, which they need to cut off the flow of. There's these 5 pipes. Someone's got to get to it to cut off the flow in a certain amount of time, otherwise it's going to get into everything and be a much bigger problem. So who's going to save the day? Of course, Geordi is there to save the day. So he's got to climb up on these pipes, he's got to jump across these things, and he manages to close down these 5 pipes, and there's very well written and fun action sequence, and saves the day there. After he saves the day, he's actually implicated in the bombing, because there is basically they scan around the facility, and near where the bombing was, there was a human signature. And being the only human in the area, he's implicated, and he is detained by the safeguard officer, I think they call him, Lance Chris. And all of these Elosians I didn't mention are huge. I think they're probably a couple feet taller than, maybe 7-8 feet, something like that. So just big, tall, kind of like lurches, Anyway, Lance Chris very nicely kind of asked Geordi to step into his office, and he's kind of detained for the moment. And then the crew of the Enterprise, of course, gets to work. They have an officer now that's in trouble, so they need to solve the problem. So they all kind of set to work figuring out, looking for clues from the bomb and that kind of thing. And Data is the one who manages to find a clue. So he kind of goes back and forth through his scans and determines that there was a blip where there wasn't a blip before. So there's something not very far away from this purification plant that shows up on his scanners now that didn't show up before. So now they know something is out there. So they contact the safeguard officer, Lance Chris, and they set up, I think, Worf and Riker and Lance Chris to go out and check out what's out there. And when they get out there, they find this, they find like a little encampment out there, and then they see this human off in the distance running away. So then you get your second action sequence of the book, which is just like a little chase scene where they're chasing this guy down through these little canyons and valleys, and Riker finds this little shortcut and manages to kind of get around, and they get to this guy right at the very end, and as soon as they get to him, he's shot by these 4 darts from far away. And the scene completely reminded me of in the Star Wars, when Jango Fett shoots the assassin that's going after Padme. That exact kind of thing. So the guy dies before he can give him any information, and they're able to kind of scan and find out that he is a human, a mercenary, basically, but they're not able to learn anything else. So, oh boy, unfortunately now my notes fall apart completely, because I just kind of kept reading, And then also in the process of reading this one, I was playing the Star Trek Resurgence game, which I keep calling Resolute for some reason. I don't know why. But anyway, I was mixing the two up. But what happens at the end is that there is another attack, this time focused in the city, and kind of around where like the Romulans were taking a tour. And this is a huge like firebomb attack. And this time Data is on hand to kind of be like Starfleet's face basically, and show them how it's done. So while all the Romulans kind of just back away and then eventually beam up and leave, Data jumps into action and starts pulling people out of buildings, saves lots of lives, and now they have to investigate this fire. So they get permission just for Data to beam down to the planet to investigate the fire, and then when he beams down to investigate, he finds Sela is already down there investigating as well, without permission. And her and Data decide to kind of team up to determine, because they figure that there's a third party here that's doing something. So they team up and they look for clues. And this is actually probably one of the funnest parts of the book, I think, is this little Data Sela team up. And it didn't even last long enough. It should have went on for longer. It could have went on for longer because it was very good. And just like the little kind of back and forth between them was good. So that was a lot of fun. But basically Data does his Sherlock Holmes thing and is able to get in there and find a clue. And he finds the clue, and it's kind of funny. He's led to finding the clue by something that Sela says about something being right under their nose, and then he finds the clue of something that smells odd, that shouldn't be in this area, and he figures that the Elosians, with their very terrible sense of smell, wouldn't have noticed this. So that's the clue, a smell. So they go around to these 4 different bomb sites, and Data's able to find the specific smell at these 4 different bomb sites. So now you have this fun, kind of little weird mystery book, too. The book really is fun. It takes a lot of different directions, but this is when I really was enjoying just like the mystery and the back and forth between the two of them was good. So anyway, Data smells something, and he smells some seaweed. So now they go back to the ship, back to their separate ships, and then Data and the crew analyze, and they find out that this seaweed only comes from one particular location on the planet. So they beam down to that location, and they get help from, I think Lance Chris goes with them, and they find this, it's basically like a greenhouse where they're growing all these vegetables for the planet and that kind of thing. When they get there, there's just a few scientists, and there's not really like a lot of guards or anything like that. And in one of the greenhouses, they find it is protected by this force field. So Riker's able, or I think Data's able to use his tricorder to put like a hole in the force field. They're able to sneak in, and now you get your last basic action sequence of the book, where they rush this group of Elosians, and they're able to take them down. You get a couple of fun scenes here too, where you have a spot where Sela's about to get crushed by a ceiling caving in, who then gets saved by Worf at the last minute because they're working together and it's the honorable thing to do at the time, even though they hate each other. But he especially hates her, So just good stuff there all around. A nice fun little battle, and in the end you find out that dun dun dun, Governor Wong, from the very beginning, from the prologue, was the chief perpetrator of the whole thing, with some help from the Tal Shiar. And it's at this point where Sela kind of puts it all together and asks Plactus to beam down, where Plactus reveals, and he even pulls out a little pen, and he's like, yep, I'm a Tal Shiar agent. So, but he failed in his duty, and his mission did not work out as intended, and he was kind of upended by this group here, this group of, basically the group that Governor Wong was leading were isolationists, and they didn't want to have contact with aliens, so that's why they were putting on this series of bombings and things like that to encourage the populace to vote no contact with either alien, which was one of their options that they could do. So Yeah, that's basically it. So the very last chapter is then kind of everything is revealed. Each side gets their chance to give their grand speech, followed by like question and answer session. So Picard gives his. There's some nice speech moments in there. Sela gives hers, and also gives a good speech as well. And each gets their own little question and answer session. And then it goes to basically it goes to like the populace to vote, which then goes to the parliament, which then goes to the president. So then the book ends with them, the president, Premier Dathan, bringing them both into the office to announce that the populace has voted to go with the Romulan alliance. What? Right? I know, right? What? It's so cool. It's such an interesting end of the book that the Federation mission fails. Sela wins. Sela wins. And it's kind of hinted at throughout the book that these people maybe are looking for more of what the Romulan alliance could give them than what the Federation would do for them. So it's an interesting decision because to join with the Romulans is almost kind of like to invite yourself to be conquered, but they didn't see it that way. They saw it as kind of the best path forward for their people. So interesting. It was just a really cool ending. I really didn't think it would go that way. So, but yeah, they join with the Romulan alliance, and then the Sela is then kind of who came into the story as kind of a disgraced Romulan commander because of everything that happened, is now lifted back up again into the good graces of the Senate and all that. Because of what she's done, she's gained this planet when the Tal Shiar's actions didn't work and basically were losing it for them. So, very interesting ending. The B story was just kind of like, I don't know, maybe like just a little fun to lighten the mood. But basically, it was this boy, James Kelly, who Ro had given a tour to, has a crush on Ro. And then he ends up asking Riker for some advice, and Riker doesn't realize that he's talking about Ro. So you got this kind of, like mixed message kind of thing going on. So Riker's giving him advice about how to hit on Ro, or so he's sending her gifts of candy, and he's asking her to a dance. And in the end, Ro is like, she comes up with this ridiculous scheme to kind of lay it on thick and be like, "Oh, James Kelly, if you really want to be with me, then we'll be together forever, and welcome to the Bajoran love ritual, and you're gonna have to eat the flesh of this thing with me." And like, she goes with this whole big long thing. So it's just kind of this silly B story, but it's kind of short, and it I was sure that at some point he was gonna tie the two things together somehow, but no, they're completely separate. But it's fun. It's a fun little story, and I guess it gave a reason to give Ro another shot on the cover, and that's fine too. So I'm not going to say anything about that. So that was good. Yeah, that was the Romulan Stratagem by Robert Greenberger, and I enjoyed it immensely, and I really think that I need to sit down and finish Star Trek Resurgence before I start another book, which is going to be hard because I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I got to scan up my tricorder. I'm stuck. But anyway, I don't think there's many hours left, so hopefully I can stream some of that maybe later tonight, and then I could pick up a new book. And let me see. I need one more TNG numbered series before we can switch up, which means my next book review. I'm getting pretty excited because on this numbered series, I'm getting close to some of these like crossovers. There's the Invasion crossover coming up. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. This is 35. Number 36 is... Ooh, I like Jean Deweese. Jean Deweese's Into the Nebula is up next. So we might be starting that tonight, or we might be doing a Star Trek Resurgence full run, trying to just push through to the end. Because it's hard to play a visual novel and read a novel at the same time. I just want to do like one or the other. So anyway, that's all we're going to say for today. Thank you so much for hanging out and talking about Trek books with me. And we'll see you all next time. Live long and prosper.